a good grant becomes available, any of those things, we're more competitive with grants if we have design done. So we have the money to do the design right now. We just don't have the money to do the project.
Right.
So we did kind of backtrack a little to do that design. We've shelved those designs. Another thing that we have run into is that the scale of this project it puts us at a threshold where the contract documents that go out for the bid package are like really prescribed. They are pages and pages and pages. And I sent the engineers that we're working with an example from a previous project. And it turns out that the contractor that we used for developing that project has a subscription service for like common forms. And those are all copyrighted materials. We cannot use them unless we pay a lot of money. So we decided that money was better spent developing Halsey forms we can use over and over again. They sometimes they'll have to be reviewed periodically and stuff. But so we're working on that as we speak. I found another example that we can use the polls, but it can be a baseline for updating. Once we have that done, then it is ready to go to our funders who expect all of these things in the bid materials. They have to be approved before we can go to bid. So we're about a month behind our original timeline, but we are still moving forward. The next thing is there's the Halsey Street projects. So our staff engineer Devco, or contract engineer Devco, are working on design for the project for the SCA grant. Once that is complete, we can put our project out for bid. So our current timeline for bid opening is early March, maybe mid-March, and then our construction timeline will really be dependent on what we get back from that bid. We usually like to leave, honestly, it's going to be more like mid-March because we like to leave bids open for like at least 3 weeks.
Right.
That one also is one of those that the threshold, the cost of that project means that it has to be more formal bid process, sealed bids. Everybody has to drop them off. We open them on one day. That's usually kind of how we handle those more things that cost over $250,000. So obviously project before the rain again in the next winter. We're hoping sooner is better. If we can get through the bid process and we have a contractor that we like, that has a competitive bid and that is available in June, fantastic. We'll press on. So I'll have more about that like once we get further along in that process. I kind of already talked about that general project bid stuff where I said, the copyrighted materials, but just to talk a little bit about numbers, if we wanted to, because we were just trying to hurry up and get that I&I project out the door, it's like over $2,000 for one-time use. We can never use those documents again. That is why we felt like it was more
and in the wrong business.
for Halsey to develop their own, not copyrighted, that we can use again. Because we are potentially going to need it for the street project that we're getting ready. We're going to need it for some other things coming up. We have phase 2 of the well that we're getting ready for.
Right.
We're going to need some stuff. So that's that. The library 5K registration is open. I need somebody to print me flyers. We'll get you guys some flyers. And so I just am putting this here, even though we have another agenda item specifically about events, because I want to make sure that we're promoting it. We're going to get some flyers to folks. I definitely would encourage you guys to take them, go out into the world, promote our library. It is a big, important event for us. Small towns really are rubbing 2 pennies together to do anything that's just for fun. And so the library is operating on like $10,000 a year to run that place.
Right.
And keep the lights on, pay the heat bill, pay for, repairs when the heat goes out, which we've dealt with this year. All those things come out of that small library fund and the programs that we offer. So when we do, she's planning a pollinator garden thing and she's, she does a story time, we do the parade, all those things that we do for the community, and summer reading program, which is the big one. They're free for the kids in this community. They really come from that fundraising effort. So that's coming up, put it on your radar. Education partnerships. So recently, and I might leave some of this for Mayor if it's on your report. Okay. We did it for LBCC, and I'll leave that for the Mayor. It's part of our work with Real, and Ellie was present for that tour as well. And then another thing that we recently did is a Central Rhode School District. They're working on starting a business school and community coalition. And so Mayor and I both attended that as well. And so that's probably on his report. I won't double dip. Thanks, Claire. Oh, thank you so much. Code enforcement. We have an active code enforcement case, related to Jeff in town. It is one that has elevated to the point of, Lynn County Building Codes is working with us on that one. We are using them for specific code enforcements because they do more like following something through all the way to abatement. I was like, what's the word? When those things are necessary more often, that's like their whole purview. And so this property is a property that has enforcement letters for a variety of violations like every year. Lots of really overgrown blackberries, livestock in the front yard, lots of junk. We really made attempts, like kind of one piece at a time with them. We like, here's a letter for this. And it seems like it's always something, but like sometimes it really, like we have houses in town that it's always something. So I said here that we would provide an update. They were given a timeline of a week, several weeks ago, to get some progress made. They did a few things and they were given an additional 10 days. With a very specific list of things they needed to take care of in those 10 days. Monday was their deadline to do that, and they did not any of them.
They did not?
No. So not any of it. So they have been issuing citations for all the adults that live at the home. And they have a court date in mid-March to go before the judge. And it will be kind of similar to how we handled the cars that we had recently.
Mhm.
The city does not take a really aggressive approach when it comes to like, we don't treat this place like an HOA. We don't expect that everybody is going to have a perfect lawn and a perfect yard, but there are a handful of properties that tend to just kind of tip too far over. And as we've discussed before, when you have properties that are in a pretty extreme state of disrepair, like junk piled up, not just, an elderly person that has trouble keeping up on things, like that's not what we're talking about. Like we have houses that fall into pretty extreme disrepair, lots of junk, lots of garbage, lots of broken down cars. Studies show that it gives a sense to the community that this is a place where people don't care and they don't pay attention. And there's an association with increased property crime.
Yep.
With those things. And so Halsey kind of has to decide what the line is and enforce upon that. There are, I would say, 4 houses that are kind of on our radar. 2 most recently that we've discussed more that have like elevated to us, like really following up and really going through his citation, going to court. Yeah, so again, we don't treat it like an HOA. I don't think we're overzealous. 4 properties in the entire town have elevated to the status of really being on our radar. Spring cleanup. I have heard back from Sweet Home Sanitation and they said that May 16th should work, have not hard confirmed. So we need to hear back from them for the hard confirmation that that date will work. This is an item for feedback. The proposed dates for the garage sale are either the weekend of June 13th or June 27th. Those dates were chosen because they don't compete with like the Pioneer Picnic. There's a couple other things.
Graduation.
Even like Lebanon Strawberry Festivals when we watch out for because it's regional.
Brownville's.
Brownsville's is always in July.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it does compete with that. So those are 2 that don't have too many like competing other things going on. So does anybody have any strong opinions about either of those dates?
I like the 13th just because it's earlier in the summer.
Right.
Yeah. That's a lot of the school too, so in theory, most families won't be jetting out for vacations quite yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it doesn't matter, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, because I think the kids' last day is Wednesday, a half day or Thursday. Yeah.
All right, if it is, we've got a date.
So the next item on the agenda is public works. And there are notes. Is Amy gonna make any special,
Randy?
Yeah. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. And then after that is the library report.
I have one note on the library report.
Okay.
She talks a lot about the fun things that we're planning again, Arbor Day events and pollinator garden stuff. Works, very exciting. Last week of April, we'll be having those events. Stacy probably knows more about plans between the school and the library than I do. But she did make a comment in here that Halsey has an initiative to be a bee city. That's like very specific, like being a tree city.
Right.
We are not a bee city. So I just want to make that clarifying point.
Right.
We are initiating some projects that are fun, that support pollinators. You're not officially a bee city. That is actually like changing how you do public works.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it. It would be a much bigger discussion. That doesn't mean we can't do some other fun things that still support these. Pollinators.
Very good. So the next one is my report. This month I was actually kind of feel better enough to kind of move around doing more stuff. So as Brad said, we did the LBCC tour with Rio. And the goal behind that is LBCC can see what they can do to help the school district Halsey. There's some talk of maybe implementing some sort of work shadowing or internships, more things like that. It's still very far off actually occurring. But it gave us a really good idea of what opportunities there are for potential future employment by the city, specifically in skilled trades like, electronics, machining, welding, mechatronics, which is robotics, for lack of a better word. And that's my understanding of it. We currently have our intern, Ellie, who's now gone, through LBCC. She is is it business? She's communications student at LBCC. So she's been doing a great job so far. No reason to think we can't leverage students getting work experience in the future. Central and School District. The Central is the meeting we had was kind of a pilot meeting to see if there's interest in this business school and community coalition. Greer and I went, and I think there was positive coming out. I think it's one of those, in the past, we've seen those school districts where they would do all the things all the time at one time. And I think what the big thing out for me was, if we're going to do this, we need to have a singular focus on a program and then spread to other programs and see where the school district and LBCC can work together. I don't know if they've set the next meeting date. Do you?
No, they have. It's going to be, I want to say the second Monday of every month.
Okay.
Or the first Monday. I'll have to look at our calendar.
Good to know.
A Monday of every.
A Monday of some type.
Yeah.
So I think that as a goal for Halsey, we've been trying in the last several years to mend the school district relationship with the city of Halsey. I think this is another step in the right direction. We shall see more, and I'm sure we'll have reports going forward. The next one, I had a conversation with the Oregon Emergency Management and Lynn County's Emergency Services Officer, talking about, concern that the state and local have for emergencies coming into the new year, what their focus are going to be on. It looks like it's going to be a lot of forest fire stuff. And they expect to have, at least state level, some wind events. They weren't really able to specifically nail down what a wind event is other than high winds. Does that mean in the grass fields, we're going to have many tornadoes more than there usually are? Are they going to be bigger, or what that's going to be an impact for the city? They've said that they would contact and give us more information as it comes across. So I think that's a good thing. We did our FEMA meeting was it last summer?
Our FEMA meeting,
The report we had to do with
National Hazard.
National Hazard Mitigation. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much that. Questions, comments, concerns? Equity?
The school at LBCC, do they dual enroll? Does our school dual enroll with LBCC or not?
They do limit it, and they want to do some more of that and have some classes that students can take at LVCC or that are, I don't know, if hosted is the right word, but do it on site at the school district level and get credit at LVCC. So they're getting, basically trying to get so they can knock out their 101s.
That's curious. My high school did it with LCC and it was super helpful for the kids. So I
Yeah,
wasn't sure if
right.
they did it here or not.
I think that's the goal, ultimate goal. Anybody else? Gosh, quiet down there. The next item on the agenda is old business, the West A and B Street vacation, and it's a staff report.
Okay, so we tabled this last time so that folks can kind of digest it a little bit more. And this is relation to the A and B Street vacation. So I am now on page 48. And the first thing that we're gonna talk about is like what initiated this, right? Or some of the finance. And that is this first map. And so when you're looking at this map, it's a little misleading. Because again, the background is that there was, you know, some confusion about ownership of this little cutout here, which is A Street. And that was, you know, there was a discussion of a land swap. Well, that didn't take place because in order to do street vacation, what ended up happening is that we required the applicant to show proof of ownership. And so through their people that they hired and they had provided to the city along with their application, they were able to find the history to show that this little piece, the A Street that the church has built across, has ownership of the church. So they gave it the new food. So this here shows this parcel here that kind of abuts where like what 6th Street would be dead ends into. That was always Area C, always owned by the church. Area B, always owned by the church. And so now the topic at hand is the vacation of A and B. Also to address questions about ownership, I think that there are places in town where the city does own the streets.
Mhm.
And then the row that kind of goes into, you know, what is their yards. There are some places in town around the outskirts where none of it was ever developed yet. And so the city actually owns like the easement. So we have an easement which says you can't build on top of it. Can't do this. If you want to make it so that there's not an easement there, you have to go through this vacation process. But we don't actually own land. So like we don't own any of the Kim's lands just because there's an easement for 6th Street on there. It does mean that they can't build over the top of it because the city has an easement right there. That is true for A Street, and yes, there is a building over it. That's true for B Street. So moving on, you're gonna see that there was all this stuff about lot lines. Again, that part didn't go through.
So there was no land swap.
It's no land swap. I know, but that initiated, like, so we had to dig into all of it because all of those things were talked about by many parties. All of those things came before us a number of times. Aubrey's gonna go on and on and she works on a lot of this stuff, so I'll end up being like, right? And so, you know, really what we reviewed in this request, we determined ownership and then we accepted the application. They didn't need to deposit. Or they did, you know, they had to provide the proof of ownership in order to submit the application because otherwise they have to get signature from all bordering property owners in order to submit it. Not bordering anywhere around, but like people who would get the easement, which is the property owners like directly to the north and south of that situation. Which in this situation is the church on both sides. So what the staff report does is we notice utilities. We say, do you have any utilities in there? We check to see if we have any utilities in there. And then the next thing that we do is we say, or do you have some kind of master plan that we don't know about that like it's really important that we maintain that easement for future utilities? And we hear back from folks and if they say no, which is what happened here. Also, fire district, is there a reason to maintain this for emergency response? We make sure that it's clear who's paying the cost. And then we go through for staff recommendation. So the things that we take into consideration is if there is something in like the comp plan, something in the transportation plan, or other things that say like we really need that street. We don't have utilities in there. We don't need the street. This is all created by our contract planner, Dave Kenny.
Right.
And so based off of those findings, the recommendation is it's not needed, like we don't need to keep it. The question for council is, do we vacate it? And so council has the option to review the whole thing, say, yeah, we think A Street makes sense, we think B Street makes sense, we think both make sense, we think none makes sense. And that's the question on the table. So the 6th Street that was mentioned earlier is not, or not 6th Street, I'm sorry. So 6th Street, let's go back to one of the maps. We'll see on page 49. Page 49. So, like this area here, right, B Street, and that's 6th Street. How it kind of goes in there, that's not in question. There's been no request for this portion here.
There where it says 66.
So 6 will
Yeah.
continue to kind of go into the field a little bit. See it there? Okay. The request is for A and B. Negating that. Also, you'll see there's like right along here on the other side, out in the middle of the field, it's the PIM property. There are 7th Streets and I think even 8th Street.
Yeah.
It says 8th Street, yes. Those are also not up for consideration right now. Like none of those have anything to do with this request. So we are not discussing like vacation of these access points. Is there any questions? Comments, whatever.
Is this gonna landlock anybody? Doesn't look like it, but
Our back lot.
7th Street's not vacated. If we would vacate 7th Street and B Street, yeah, so we got parts of it. That's we're not vacating 7th Street, that is the way.
7th Street's not there and it's in the middle or on the edge of wetlands. So what's the likelihood that 7th Street will ever be able to be
B Street.
right.
true?
So that would
If you get a
actually.
line lot adjustment, it's 100%. Guaranteed there'll be a house.
Yeah. 7th Street. Yeah,
I know there'll be a house, but
we've been told.
That's the intent.
So, yeah, I mean, that's.
The property owners. that's-
Consider.
Right.
A Street has a building on top of it.
Right.
I would say that I would support the recommendation for A Street vacation. The church is built across it. We will never put a street there. B Street, if one day somebody wanted to develop if the church wanted to develop back behind there, B Street would be an access point. Again, there
Right.
is, the applicant saying that they would like to vacate it. If the other property that's, on 6th Street, that's another access point. It is the closer access point. Again, that 7th Street is not being vacated, so there is a secondary access point. Technically, it would not be that lot, those lots landlocked, if somebody was like really determined.
No.
But not vacating it would increase, to me, would increase the value of area C. On street B. Now,
It's that secondary access.
A makes sense because there's a building on it and it's. Yeah. Just vacate it and B, call that enough, but if you. It gives you more options on the other, by not vacating B. Gives you more options for that piece of land that's in there. From
For the future.
my point of view, but.
We have any written comment on it from public?
From the public?
Yeah.
We have not had any written public comment. See, also, last time we held public hearing, it's required in statute. At that hearing, we did not get public comments.
Right.
We obviously had public comment tonight related to it. So. Council. On page 45. And we can keep talking about it. I'm happy to answer more questions. You guys want to mull it over some more options again, always table things again. You can choose to only approve a portion of it. You can choose to approve all of it. You can deny the whole thing.
At this point, I would think probably tabling it for some more information
Yeah,
would be a.
If we're tabling for more information, do you want to mull over the questions that you have and
Yeah.
you guys can follow up with me?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll make sure to get those addressed before the next council meeting.
And if there's, public comment, get any documentation on that. So,
Okay. Okay, table for more information, council will second.
so I would, I think just entertain a motion to table. Any consensus for that or no, or? Yes.
Oh, it's gotta be a motion.
So I would entertain a motion to table the topic for further discussion and information.
right here. Yep, go ahead.
Just trying to figure out how to read it. So
Yeah, I know, yeah.
I move that the governing body of the city of Halsey table topic for vote at future meeting to vacate West A Street and West B Street between the previously vacated West Sixth Street right of way and the West Seventh Street right of way between blocks 1 and 2, Cooper's addition to the town of city of Halsey.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I'm recusing my,
It's like brainstorming on how to say that right.
I'm recusing myself for a potential conflict of interest.
Any opposed? Okay, carries. So the new business is the emergency response plan, the first review. So this is just a discussion, no motion required, no consensus, right? Yeah. How much further?
This is just, an initial review.
Handy dandy slideshows. So.
It's not one of these small. There we go. All right, you may change the whole thing, because it's being a pain, that's a present.
Technology graph.
Okay, so, Halsey emergency response plan. Here we go. We got there. Thanks for your patience. Watching me struggle through it.
We were.
So- This is an emergency response plan. A little bit of background. This began during the administrator shuffle. It was lost to the others. We tracked it down and revived it. Mayor reviewed it. It's a project that he initiated when we had Julia. And he and Julia, the intern, which some of you didn't get to meet, she was an intern that we had before I started. Worked on this emergency response plan. And then again, it was lost in space. We discussed it at several goal settings and Mayor said, we have something. So we found it. And he went through and he did a review and updates. And then I did a secondary review of a couple updates. And it's really at the place where it's ready for council to do an initial review. And this is something that when we're ready, it needs to be formally adopted. So. Just a quick overview of what I'm gonna go over, and these things are really the components of the ERP. And it's purpose, hazards identified, partner organizations, our emergency management phases. There's like, kind of drilling in order of the emergency phases when we're in, that emergency part of it, some service tiers, task assignments, next steps. So first of all, the purpose. The purpose of this document is to minimize the impact of natural or human-caused disasters in Halsey. And we do that by creating a framework for organized response and to ensure that city staff and partner organizations are aware of their responsibilities to prepare for disaster, to actually respond to the disaster, and to do the post-disaster recovery. In the plan, it does do a real high-level overview of the kinds of hazards that Halsey might encounter: earthquakes, winter storms, windstorms, floods, wildfires. Wildfires to a lesser degree here, but we definitely see the impacts of smoke and air quality when we have really bad fire seasons. Those things are discussed in much more detail in that county natural hazard mitigation plan.
Right.
Listed in here is also a list of some of our other management organizations that have roles in the event of a natural disaster response or emergency response. What this plan does is it has more prescribed and detailed information about Halsey's role. This plan talks about kind of how these other agencies work on disaster response, but it does not intend to prescribe their duties. They're their own entities. They have their own plans. We partner with them. They're listed in our plan as resources, but we are not trying to tell them how they show up for everything. So obviously we have City of Halsey, which Public Works right away is servicing Halsey residents. Lynn County Sheriff is going to have a lot of roles in relation to us. They can coordinate resources and emergency with municipalities. Halsey Fire is, fire protection, obviously, rescue, EMT, ambulance. I mean, I've even heard them say that they could stand up the kitchen because they do pancake breakfast. They have other things within their organization that they are prepared to do, and that's in their plans. And then this last one, this Lynn County Emergency Operations Center is not an all the time entity. It's something that gets stood up when the emergency response is activated. And so then there's somebody who has the role of being the County Emergency Operations Center coordinator, and their line becomes open and this entity becomes live. So phases of emergency, we have, normal phase. So we're just going about our regular business. And in that, we're making sure that we're doing bid upkeep. We're kind of, we're making sure that we're being mindful of mitigation and risk assessments. That's what's happening in our normal phase. Preparedness phase kind of also goes alongside with that normal phase. We're doing those things. We should be doing them all the time. And that's where we're doing trainings. That is where we're working on community outreach and education. Maintaining our emergency response plan, making sure it's current, and any sort of interagency cooperative agreements, that those things are all in place. And then also maintaining any sort of emergency response inventory that we see fit and checking on those things. We don't have a huge emergency response inventory. I see her looking at me, but it's thinking about those things, preparing. And then the emergency phase. And so this is where a lot of this document lives, because that's the point, right? And that is when the plan is activated. Documenting all emergency response efforts happens in this phase. And that sounds boring, but it's very, very important. There's actually quite a bit of detail in this report about that, because when you're in a situation where you're in an emergency, you're thinking about how do we help people right now to get through this catastrophe? But if FEMA money becomes available, if other things that make it possible for us to recuperate some of our costs for those things, or to continue to provide them, then it's really important that we document it. So it becomes a part of the plan. Also, just those emergency response efforts, managing donations and volunteers, all the things that go into emergency response happen in this phase. And then that initiation of maintaining and restoring that continuity of priority services is when you're in that emergency phase. So there's tiered services. We'll talk about that a little more in a further slide. And also in recovery, again, those tiered services, we're starting to restore to our original functional capacity. And that is definitely achieved through these interagency partnerships. So within that emergency phase, it drills down further into that order of emergency phases. Phase 1, again, we're activating our plan. That is done by the city administrator. We're all of the designated emergency personnel. There's a big list of people in this document. The one that's in front of everybody is redacted. You all will get access to the normal one, but it has cell phone numbers and some other things of people that have specific roles in the event of emergency. Those people are designated, they're contacted. And then city council and staff, so this is where you guys come in, need to convene to implement emergency response actions. So sometimes there's policy and procedure things, there's things we need to respond to right now, approval to move funds, those are council actions. And so in an emergency, that's how you guys would need to show up, is being ready to meet however we can to the best of our ability in order to get those approvals necessary to move forward. Phase 2, immediate response. Public Works assisting fire to clear roads. Like we're doing rescue, we're doing recovery, making sure that people just get through so supplies can get through streets. And then setting up emergency resources, coordination with fire districts and school districts, having those landing pads where people can get help. Phase 3 is actually taking the time to start assessing assistance. Going around, what is the damage? Is our water distribution system completely, do we have a huge earthquake and now all the pipes are broken? What are we facing? And then ongoing emergency status reports. Then phase 4 is that ongoing volunteers, donations, assistance, document management, and then that cleanup and utility restoration. That how do we get back to our functional capacity? I mentioned tiers of services. And so this is where in the emergency phase, we're focusing on tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is that, what do we need right now? Best case scenario, can we get it on within 24 hours? Tier 2, it's really important, but if we live without it for a week, it's going to be okay. Tier 3, we could go without it for a whole month, and it's not going to be a huge impact on our community. So those are the things that when we're in the recovery phase, you start focusing on. Unfortunately, those are the things like, will we have library services in the event of catastrophic emergency? That will probably be a tier 3. Do we need water? Tier 1. Are we going to do community center rentals? Tier 3. So next up is task assignments. This is a lot of words. We're going to broad stroke it.
Yeah.
So there are very specific roles in this plan for certain people. The city administrator is the emergency management director, oversees the emergency response plan, has the authority to activate, coordinates efforts. The public works director is doing similar stuff in the public works sphere. So emergency management program manager, that's a lot of managers in that section. Oversees the public works facilities, is coordinating with outside entities to get our public works facilities operational. We're coordinating with the fire district, again, clearing roads, doing everything we can to help out. And then also requesting emergency public works support from other municipalities. So there's interagency agreements across the state where public works entities will help each other out in the event of emergency. And then the mayor also has a specific role, which is he's a program coordinator. And they work with me to get aid from outside agencies and do a lot of work in coordinating volunteers and doing that outreach. City council will have goals. And that is, again, I talked about convening, policy level task. So that's the authority to issue a declaration of emergency. So that declaration of emergency often is required for some of those funding sources, like it has to be a formal thing. So council might need to meet to be able to do that formal process. Invoking incident specific emergency measures, moving money around to be responsive. We, even in the event of emergency, are still obligated to do those things in accordance to public law to the best of our ability. And then just assisting with communications to residents, assisting with other response and recovery efforts as you're available. City staff have goals. City reporter or assistant city reporter is a supplemental guide during emergency. So basically just being like a second me, a second mayor, somebody who can answer questions and help, make decisions on the fly to coordinate volunteers. Been at the city for a long time, well vetted, well trusted. And also really handling those community-wide communications efforts. So if we have internet and we're putting things out on Facebook or, or other platforms, great. If not, like how else are we gonna get those things out to folks? And then all the rest of the staff are getting in wherever they can help, helping with collection of donations, coordinating with volunteers and other activities. What's next for this? No. Council review and approval. It is not an agenda item for approval tonight. I just wanted to have the opportunity to kind of go over, the relevant information here. You have the whole thing. You're welcome to read every single word of it.
Please do.
And then it will be on a future agenda item for approval. The next, also for staff, we want to identify what those tiers of services are. So first, we looked at the emergency response plan very briefly at a previous staff meeting just to say, hey, we'll just over if you have time, try to dig into it, start thinking about what you see those tiers being and like what it would, what kind of actions might be necessary to keep those things live. It's hard to do that when we're not, but you might have some inclination. So identifying those tiers. Staff and council should be thinking about what kind of training needs we think we would have in order to feel like we were effective to these plans. And then actually doing some training. So that's the timeline. Now, said so many things, discussion and questions. Just questions, just discussion.
Questions, comments, concerns?
And the question I had when reading through it is, we don't really have like a tremendous wildfire issue or anything here. Like for the most part, it's going to be the main one that I can think of is going to be like a railroad derailment, especially because they keep happening. And it's like one line in here and then nothing with like the railroad is mentioned or anything. Is there like a separate protocol that's already in place like through the county that if there's a derailment that like that's already, someone has that plan?
The county's emergency response team, they predominantly worked with the rails and Steve's. They pretty much handle that. So if there was a derailment in our general area, the county would notify us and they would be pretty much handling it.
Okay.
If there's anything they needed from us, then we would do what we could to implement that.
Yeah, it's not, you're right. It's not very specifically discussed in this plan.
And when
How to handle that.
or initially starting to build that, that was predominantly the reason we didn't include a whole lot because the county's already doing it.
But that goes back to we have another plan, that natural hazard mitigation plan
Right.
that is so much longer, but the Halsey portion of it is a lot more bite-sized.
Right.
Going back and reviewing that just to see if there's more information, because that's generally aligned with like earthquakes is where they put it. Sometimes wind potentially. To see if there's, I'll look at that and see if it's more prescribed in that document. I don't know if it's, I'll see what mayor has.
Yeah, and that was the only thing when I was looking at it, because in theory, that's going to be the most likely situation that we're gonna have with like roads being closed probably, or like people actually being injured with houses and stuff right there. And on the slides that we had, some of that went to like Andy with roads and some of it went to the fire department. And
Right.
like if the county's taking over, does like the county services circumvent over our fire department, or like how? Because there's a lot of houses right there if a train was actually to derail at like 75 coming through town.
That point, is it the Tri-County Fire District? That we're part of the coalition for the fire department.
I'm not sure.
That's gonna be a good question for Travis.
Yeah, that'd be a good question for Travis, yeah.
I think we're part of the Tri-County Fire Coalition. I'm sure that that's gonna be a county level thing, but that, again, we need to talk to Travis to coordinate that. So once we've looked at this, we'll probably have some more meetings with Travis and the Emergency Operations Center.
I say, since this is Halsey related and that, like you
Right.
said, that is something, should there be something listed, about railroad, default to the Lynn County,
Sure.
just so it's addressed?
Yeah, I
Anyways,
agree. I agree. This is why I want you guys to look at this.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You enjoy reading long documents.
I know you
Of
do.
course you do.
I was kind of counting on you. And whatever Derek has to input, we greatly appreciate it as well.
What's that?
Well, I just committed to a whole bunch of stuff.
Oh, perfect.
No, so whatever.
He's in La La Land.
input you have.
Yeah.
Appreciate it as well.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I think Sean would be a good one to bring in on
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Almost more than,
More than Travis.
yeah, I think, well, Sean's just more directly, Travis is kind of managing everybody and everything, and Sean's more
Okay.
directed
Fine.
towards, like, he would be able to answer a lot of this and.
So what do you think about coordinating a meeting with
Sure.
us and?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I can talk to him tomorrow
Okay, excellent.
and get that set up.
Good deal.
Yeah,
Sean,
he's our training officer.
Sean Johnson.
beautiful.
Mhm.
He's the assistant chief too, isn't he?
No, that's Guy Miller.
Guy Miller.
Yep.
No other questions, comments, concerns? Good discretion, you guys are easy.
Are you awake down there?
Yeah,
You awake?
and he has all the kids, so.
Got all of everything. Busy.
So with that, we're gonna move on to the event planning and council engagement.
83.
What was that?
83.
Okay, so this is a topic of discussion because we are embarking on our event season. This is when we kind of have a few things stacked up. First up, we talked a little bit about the 5K. That is May 9th. That's coming up soon. Right before that, we are doing our Arbor Day event. And so the Arbor Day event is pretty straightforward. We do the trees and shrubs. We do a giveaway. Caitlin is beefing it up this year because she's pairing it with her pollinator garden project. And so she's been working to try to coordinate some field trips with the schools, with some classrooms, and do some fun activities around that. And then again, we do tree giveaway here at City Hall and there. So those are the Arbor Day is kind of like a lower stakes or lower support need activities, but the 5K really, especially day of support,
Right.
is really helpful. So I just want to get that out to folks for sure. Even ahead of it, if you're like, I can't be there to set up, registration booths or whatever, but taking a handful of flyers, talking to people those things are really, really helpful. Spreading the word. We really do our best to really put things out on our social media and have the flyers available here. But a handful of us can only go so far, and so those are really ways that you can support the efforts of the city is by being willing to just drop some flyers somewhere and go say, hey, can I leave these here? Just those little actions. And so I just wanted to put that out in front of folks. Some other events coming up are, there's another one in the spring. Why am I drawing a blank?
City garage sale.
City Garage Sale Day.
Oh, that's in June. There's,
So you find out.
Yeah. Moving on, I don't know why I can't think of it. Yeah, there's something else. That's all right, I have, I'm not sure. Moving on, I feel like there was another one, I'll remember, I'll tell you guys later. Okay. So, yeah, and so the big thing that I really want us to spend some time on is actually Halsey turns 150 years this year. Oh, I remember, I'm so sorry, backing up, we also are looking to do a few little like Halsey cleanup projects or Halsey, like, Stacy brought this forward at the Parks and Library Committee, like maybe doing a little work party to clean up the area of the park around the sign and like actually making it nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So some of those things, like anybody that wants to like get in, do some of these work party activities. I know you want me to take pictures of you, I'm definitely going to. You know, because like that thing has like a really ugly overgrown rose and it could just look a lot nicer. Like the path looks nice, like things are moving along.
oh, the park, are you talking about the,
When you,
yeah, that used to be, look so nice.
Opportunities to like.
Used to look so good.
Vacation projects, we always plant flowers at the Veterans Memorial Park.
Yep.
And before Memorial Day every year, we usually try to do it kind of earlier in May so that they like kind of look more full and nice by the time that Memorial Day comes. So those are opportunities, like little, you know, sometimes it's like 30 minutes of your time, come down, plant some flowers.
Yep.
I think that it shows a level of engagement to our community that our council members are like, oh, they care about like those little investments in the community. Obviously, you guys get the period meetings and you're here, so you're investing in our community. But those are other opportunities, so I just wanted to get them on your radar. The big topic of discussion, and that is, it is Halsey's 150 years.
Yep.
And so we are discussing what can we do to beef up some of our events to kind of highlight that is happening. In April is when it's the 150-year anniversary of when Halsey became officially incorporated. We're looking at doing some things in our newsletter. I looked to Larissa because I was like, you can do that, right? To kind of do some little kind of like Halsey highlights, but really specific to that, you know, history of Halsey stuff.
I felt like incorporating a little 150 somewhere on the logo and like putting that on our social media, like a
Yeah.
temporary one.
Yeah.
I know Halsey used to do, like way back, they used to do, it was achievement days.
Right.
I don't know all that was entailed with it, but I know when my oldest was in preschool, we tried to start the parade back up, and we did a parade a couple years, the Halsey Achievement Day Parade.
Last summer, Audrey was doing a whole bunch of cleaning out stuff, and we found a bunch of the old posters from Achievement Days.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of input from the school. So I hauled those up and took them over to the school, and they were thrilled to have those. So.
Yeah.
You can talk to the school and see if they'd be interested in maybe trying to get something off the ground. For the city side, and obviously if they were, the city would do what we could to support that.
Sure.
For the city side of things, we've talked about beefing up the barbecue, making a little extra special this year.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So some of the things, the ideas we've kicked around is doing some Halsey 100-year t-shirts that staff is so excited to wear. But we can have extras for council, and then also potentially if we get a design, we can put it out if people want to buy Halsey 100-year t-shirts. You know, especially if we could do small orders, like things that pre-order, it should be doable. And then doing some, what's the word I want? Like inflatables.
Yep.
Or other larger items at the barbecue. And so I did have a meeting on yesterday. It's been a long week already. I had a meeting with our insurance company, the people who do our liability. And I talked to them about what is the risk, what's allowed, what would it take for us to do some of these things that are considered like higher risk activities. And so essentially, it's not banned. They say, we always advise against it to do things like bounce houses and stuff because it opens you up for risk. They do have guidance if you do choose to do it. And there's also a special event surcharge. So it's for every inflatable is $1,000 with a maximum of 2. So the most that you will spend is 2,000, but by taking on that additional risk, you have to pay a surcharge fee. So that, and it's a one-time. So for that event, there's the surcharge fee. So I did run some numbers. Our normal cost for doing the movie night to do, we do a really small kid zone, we do food, we do the movie, we do the popcorn, we do a few things. Is almost $3,000, like just shy of 3,000. If we wanted to add some more activities, the price range that we're looking at to include the games, the bouncers, and then there's delivery and setup fees, the surcharge fee, and what else? Oh, staff time. So if we wanted to have staff for certain activities from the actual vendor in order to sort of like, again, that added layer of risk mitigation, there's staff costs. That would be anywhere from an additional $2,000, like 2,900, depending on what we selected. So I am going to pull up something that I have been looking into for cost. I have to share my screen again.
I interrupt, when are we talking? What, we're talking movie night and it's the end of August, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes, and so if we wanted to, it's September 11th is when movie night is.
Now, one thing that, when Fran and I were talking about staff and council member involvement, what I would like to see is council members kind of coordinating and supervising these. And with that being said, if you're supervising them, really, really shouldn't be playing on them. None of us should be playing on them.
Unless you have to.
Well, I'm not supervising the bounce houses then.
Unless you're arresting yourself, we're bad.
So, well, then I'm not supervising the bounce house then.
So one of the things that came forward from the discussion with the insurance folks is that items like this, don't. Right, it's tabletop, there's still kind of a step up from what we've done in the past, they're like carnival games, they don't require the additional surcharge. So these are an option. You could just say, yeah, we think this looks fun, let's stop there. You could do fewer of these kinds of games to reduce that cost. Like one of the other packages that I priced out was 500, it had a few things. And then the other thing that Mayor and I discussed is if we wanted to do some carnival games, one bounce house, that's $1,000 surcharge. Again, with the staff time, I only calculated any of this with one of those higher risk items. And we also discussed like an obstacle course being a better option than a bounce house because there's kind of a start and finish, keeps the line moving. Kids kind of have to stay on their course. And the activity is not just to jump into each other. So possibly easier to just manage. And again, the importance of probably just adding an extra $240 to staff it from the agency. So on the higher ends, if we get a lower cost carnival package, fewer games, that $500 range, you're looking at that 2,100-ish. If you go up to a bigger carnival package, that's when you get that closer to 3,000. Right now in our fund that we use towards this, we currently have about $3,000. So generally how it works, because the change in the fiscal year happens in July, is that some of that money we should hold back for other activities in Halsey before, not just spend everything throwing it at this barbecue, like putting $500 aside to do some of our other projects, doing smarter things, stuff like that.
Greater.
Yeah, so we want to assume that we're not going to spend all of this, but some of the money that comes out for the barbecue, like the 2,900 number that I pulled, that's already come out of this fiscal year's fund.
Oh,
So some of it will roll over into next fiscal year. So this is not out of reach for us. We budget between $5,000 and $6,000 for community events a year.
mhm.
We increased that budget a couple years ago because it was the goal. We tried to beef up some of the things that we didn't want to see. So we've been trying to kind of do more at the events that we already have some traction on. I think that the thing that I want to hear from council on this is, one, I want consensus on how you want to pursue really drilling into this and maybe like actually commit to doing some of these inflatables or not. So that's the consensus item. But the other thing is that if we have this many additional activities, as Mayor mentioned, we actually do need people to help.
Yep.
To like actually like man them. You know, we've got some good guidance and some ideas on how we can mitigate risk, like parents have to sign like an acknowledgement of risk sort of thing, and then the kids get a wristband like you're going to the fair. It just says like, hey, I know my kid's coming here to play and that they're gonna jump on stuff. And I'm not gonna hold you at fault for that.
Right.
All of it's still free, but there's that just like added layer of liability. Whatever, you know what I mean. Thank you. So, but we would still, again, even if we pay for the staff with inflatable, from the company, having somebody at all of these tables, I think is gonna be important, just because it's a lot more going on and kids get excited.
Right.
And what we've had thus far is like high school volunteers, and I love that we have high school volunteers, but things get broken. We have cheap stuff, so it's not mattered that much. It just happens, you know? So I think having some more adults on the scene is gonna be important if we want to pursue this. That's my piece.
So we need a consensus. Do we recommend adding additional activity offerings? Do we deny it or just give the information to staff? My thought is, yeah, we would talk about adding more stuff, new stuff. I think we should just move forward and
Me
make
too.
it happen. Yep.
You're talking for the barbecue.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Where are you at?
Like, I'm quiet, I'm paying attention.
No.
So have consensus to continue on looking at additional things.
And we are interested in doing those higher risk items.
Yep.
My 2 cents for being in cities that have done events like this, I would not do a bounce house or an obstacle course.
Really?
Because if we're hiring a company out that has their employees,
Mhm.
they're probably 19 and we're trusting their employees to also do their job.
Mhm.
Which is how one of the cities that I used to work with got sued because a kid broke his leg. But like the games look like they'd be fun.
Mhm.
I know the school's done a few events that have had like the little axe throwing games and stuff, and the kids seem to like those almost as much as the bounce house. But in cities I've been at before, having like carnival style games and like a cake cutting brought in almost the same amount of excitement in people as having like a bounce house or an obstacle course with less potential of lawsuits and insurance issues.
There is a dunk tank. I mean, as long as we're collecting volunteers.
Not it.
Now they can have a volunteer.
It's the end of August.
It's, it's
Yep.
pretty hot, so.
But I think we should.
And there are some fun things. There's the axe throwing. There's another one that's like a slingshot. It doesn't require you to run through it or jump on it. And then again, with those items, we don't have to do the staff time. We don't have to do the surcharge. And so right off the bat, that is like almost $1,300 in savings. I mean, we could put that into
Yeah.
a few more other items, but we could still come in underneath that amount.
Well, I think we should keep looking at options then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll bring back more options.
Awesome. So the next item on the agenda is ordinances and resolutions.
Which table?
Yep. Yep. And with that, unless there's anything else, we are